Howdy, everybody. How you doing? Tom Britton here. I told you I'd be back. I give you a little snippet of what I was talking about earlier, a couple of days, yesterday or day before. That's how it is with stroke brain. Sometimes I'm a guy who's had a stroke. I also happen to have degrees in history, a bachelor's and a master's degree in history. So we're going to talk a little bit about both on these fun events. First of all, like I said, I had a stroke. Things are a little wobbly at times. It's in the cerebellum, not the greatest place to have one. So my fine motor skills are pretty bad. This is a therapy for my stroke. It's being able to concentrate and read and do these little things with my hands and my eyes. It's coordination efforts to try and manage my new life because they cannot fix what was wrong with mine. So I'm on a lot of medicine and pretty much my own pharmacy. So, anyways, wanted to talk a little history today. I hope you will enjoy it. Um, going to do some definitions, hopefully. A little bit of a history lesson on how we do history. That's the biggest thing is how do we do history? So I've got a couple notepads here that I got from my time in college and some great professors, and they had some great information. I'd like to share some of that with you. So let me get my glasses on so I can read, and and we'll get started here. All right. So there's one, two, three, uh, four or five types of history, and we got academic history, public history, historical memory, popular history, and the past. So I'm just going to kind of give you an overview of what they mean. And history, what do we mean by that? What do we mean by history? Well, first of all, it's complicated. Just remember that. It's not just black and white, this way or that way. It doesn't work that way. Very rarely does it work out that way. So, anyways, you'll have to excuse me. I have to take lots of fluid in, so you might hear some things go on, little crunchy noises here and there, but I got to stay hydrated. It's still a hot one, and today we are repping. Yeah, we got Sasquatch today, so gotta love it. Gotta love that history. Anyways, let's go with academic history first, because that's where we start. We start in school, academic history. And so we ask what happened? How do we know? Why did what happened happen? These are certain questions that we look at. Historical memory. Where do we think we come from? Who do we think we are? Whose stories get told and why? Now, these are more of a political type of edgy question. They kind of slide toward the political side of it. Um, it's kind of an interesting thing to think about because sometimes when we say biases as historians, it's not necessarily a negative. It's just letting you know that where you come from, your socioeconomic status. Were you black, white, Hispanic? Did you grow up in America? Did you grow up in South America, Europe, Asia? Who knows? All of these things shape how you think about history. Okay, you think about that. Where you come from, how well off you are, who your parents were, who your grandparents were. All these things are biases. They're not negatives, but they're biases because you tend to follow that pattern of family and what comes down from the family. Generally, not always, but generally. And so that's what I'm talking about with the political side of it. There's a little more politics going on in that end of it. It's just the way it is. You know, these biases tend to shape how you look at the world. So whether that's negative or not, it's generally just how it is. Okay, so the next one is what I do. I do public history. My degrees were following in the public historian, and how do we make and that's making history more accessible to everyone. We try to find that. So you'll see a lot of public history is Civil War recreation, or things like that. Or you'll see the people in their period outfits, things like that. Those are this is what a public historian does. Plus, we are academically trained, so we do a lot of things. It's really wonderful. I love history. I just love teaching. I'm not a teacher. I never wanted to be a teacher, but I do like putting it out there. So anyway, then there's what we call popular history, and that's what do people tend to believe? What do you tend to enjoy? And that's just popular history. Some people are just loving Civil War history. They go and doing reenactments and all of this other stuff. That's their thing. So that's popular history. How accurate is it? Depends on who's doing it. Some of those guys are really darn accurate. There's a couple of books out that really talk about reenactment, and it gives you a really deeper understanding of wow, they are committed. So that some of it's good, some of it's bad. All right, and then the last one is the past. Things happen. Some, not all, evidence is left behind. So what they're saying is there's usually evidence, but not always. And that can be hard and challenging for people trying to understand the past. We weren't there. We didn't witness it. We are relying on other people's information. The, the best information we can get is primary. That's the people that lived it, that were there and wrote about it or talked about it. Like in Native American history, that's their tradition is oral history. It's not written, it's oral. So it's handed down through generations. And it's really reliable history. So, you know, it's just like our writing of history. So they had a lot of oral history. So there's different ways. It's all good. You just got to remember it. But not everything is there. There's a lot of gaps, and we try to find those gaps. There's so much information that we still haven't gone through. A lot of stuff out there, a lot of stuff that isn't out there. You know, People make inferences off of bad information, so that happens. And then the other one is, so when we say we study history in school, all of this is fair game. This is what we do as historians. We go through everything that I just gave to you. This is what we study. We study all of this. So it's not just names and dates. It's, how did we get there? What was going on at the time? How many groups were involved or not involved? So that brings me to this question. So, like I said, this is not just about history, this is history. Because I want you to understand how we reach these conclusions or these assumptions or interpretations or, they're not necessarily assumptions in most cases. We're getting the information firsthand primarily. And then we usually look through and try to get the information. We want it, I can't think of the word sometimes. So, anyways, we want it corroborated. That's the word I was looking for. Corroborated. So you got primary sources, secondary sources, third. People that were there, people that knew people that were there. The stories and how they're written down. So we need that firsthand account to have the most reliable. Okay. So what questions do we ask of the past? To think like a historian, we ask, there's cause and effect, okay? What were the causes of past events? What caused these things to happen? And what were the effects of these things? Cause and effect. There's always they have to be together. Who or what made change happen? Think about that. Think about it. What happened? What made the change happen? Current events at the time? Was it lies? We don't know. You have to research it and find out. Who did not support change? Who did not want these things? Who didn't want to change any of this? Who did not want to move forward? Which effects were intended? Okay. some are intended, and then which effects were accidental. The things we weren't anticipating, they just happen. So you got to look at all these things in history, okay? How did events affect people's lives, community, and the world? How did 9/11 affect us? 9/11. How did that affect us? How did the Civil War affect the people back then? World War One, World War Two, the measles, polio. How did these affect people? What effects was this having? You know, how did it change the world? What happened? Spanish flu, 1918, World War One. Okay, think about it. How did these things cause and effect? Okay, cause and effect. Change in continuity. What has changed? What's changed? What has remained the same? Think about it. What's changed? What hasn't? Who has benefited from this change and why? These are all questions we ask when we're studying history. We try to dig into everything we can. And who has not benefited and why? Okay? Now, these stories that I'm talking about, they apply to everything. Everything. These things I'm talking about, change and continuity, cause and effect. It's about everything that you look at in history. And that's all part of the information. So it's not just a snippet on a news channel or a tweet or a little Instagram or Twitter, whatever it's called, X. It's not just about that little 132 or whatever character thing that you can do. It's much deeper than that. But we've got to figure it out. Turning points. So that is, how did past decisions or actions affect future choices? How did the past affect the future? How did decisions and actions narrow or eliminate choices for people? Go back to Dred Scott. All these things. Go back. Just go back. Go look at Taney. Chief Justice Taney. Dred Scott. Go look at these things. Okay? It's illuminating. How did decisions or actions significantly transform people's lives? Again. How? How did women get the right to vote? How did that change lives significantly? Or Native Americans becoming citizens? I mean, weren't they citizens anyway? They were the original inhabitants. So, think about these things. And then using the past. How does the past help us make sense of the present? Well, there's lots of ways. All you got to do is look. You can see the connections, okay? If you cut taxes here, it's going to hurt somebody there. So if you're cutting taxes up here, you're going to hurt the low people because they got to make up for the taxes that are cut up here. So using the past. How does the past help us make sense of the present? So you could see all these different connections, okay? How is the past similar to the present? Did we change over time? How much? How are we still similar? Are we still fighting the same things we fought back then in the past? Yeah, lots of questions. This is what we, as people who study history, this is what we look at. We try to dig into these, and I want you to understand these things. When we're talking about history, we want you to understand how to get the information that you really need to make it reliable for you. We don't want Mickey Mouse history. We want you to understand what's going on. Okay? What can we learn from the past? Well, what can we learn? I can tell you this. Humans are cruel. Very cruel. The things that we have done to each other in the name of you, whatever, is frightening. And it's all laid out in the past. I read things during my studies that they're hard to read. When you talk about babies and women and children, it's hard to read some of the things. I won't say them on here, but You got to think about that. What can we learn? And then the last thing is through their eyes. How did people in the past view their world? I don't know. Think about how do you view your world, and then think about how they're trying to view theirs. So we try to get a sense of how they see their world at the time, and generally we can find these in the writings. There's enough stuff out there that we can find quite a bit. Um, how did their worldview affect their choices and actions? What's your worldview? What are your thoughts? You know, how do you see everything? And how does it affect your choices and your actions? You know, do you see us all as equal people, as humans, as brothers and sisters, or do you think of yourself more better? Are you better? Do you think you're better than another human being? Just because we have cultural differences doesn't make us better. It just makes us different. Okay? So think about that. What values, skills, and forms of knowledge did people need to succeed? What did you need to succeed? They're just not, they didn't have the internet or anything like that. They did have each other. They did have correspondence. They were learning to read and write. Some didn't learn and read to write. You know, traditions were passed down into oral histories. Some were written down when writing became the way it was. I mean, the Egyptians, you got all of that. There's so much writing from way back that we don't even have a clue of. There's so many untapped things because we are still digging up everything from the past. We don't have all the answers. But when we do have answers, we don't really have answers, but we try to put things together in a manner consistent with what they were saying because of the sourcing. Like I said, primary sources. The people that were there, writing it, living it, doing it. That's the ones you want to get the information from, first and foremost. And then you want to corroborate that information with secondary and third choices. So it's not just a cut and dry thing that we do. We've spent a lot of time learning history, how to do history. And that, my friends, is why I want you to understand this before we start digging into some of these things. I want you to think about that. And if you have questions, just put it down. I'll try to get to them as fast as I can or post up definitions. That's where we're going to have some fun next. Let's talk about that. We hear a lot of things these days about fascism, communism, Marxism, democratic socialism. I mean, all kinds of isms out there. But most people don't know what they are. Right now, we're back in the Red Scare with communism. I mean, come on, people. Look it up. Read about it. See what it actually is before you start throwing those words around. Historians laugh in sadness mostly because people don't know what they're saying. They just throw these things out there to get under people's skins. This so and so is taking this from you. This so and so is taking this from you. I mean, really? I didn't see you out picking rock. Didn't see you out picking fruit. It's the same story passed down through generation after generation of history. So remember, what similarities do we have? Okay, think about these things when you're looking at history and somebody says something or you read something and your first instinct is to think, oh my goodness, really? Are you sure? Find out who the source is first. Who's giving you that information? And then try to figure out where they got the information. You want reliable sources. So in this age of internet, there's so much garbage out there, people, and we're trying to cut through it for you and help you out as much as we can. We're not perfect. We never said we were. It's just there's a lot to understand on how we get to these places. And it's not just, clicks or tweets or whatever. There's a lot more involved in that. Buzzwords, they're great. Love those buzzwords, don't we? I mean, I could give you a lot of buzzwords right now, and I probably will later on because I want you to feel the buzz. Some of the things that are happening now should never be happening because the history has told us they're failed policies already. They've been failed policies. We've tried this before. We've been down this road. That's what history can inform you of. Same thing with gas prices. Same thing with grocery prices. Same thing with housing, oil, all of it. We've been through these crises before. And there's history for it. And there's cause and effect. There's a reason we are in these places. There's a reason they had those problems back then. How many economic downturns have we had? Not just 1929. There was several. After the Civil War, especially. So, I mean, just you got to think about these things. Cause and effect. Okay, cause and effect. Turning points. Can we use the past to help our future? I think so. But yeah, look up the histories. And when you do look up histories, think about the sources. If somebody's trying to tell you something in history, look it up. Make sure it's right. The other thing is definitions. Get good sourcing. Merriam-Webster is a good one. Or if you need to, look up some historians. So there's some really good historians. If you need, I can give you some. I would prefer you try to find them on your own by using the materials I just gave you. There are some wonderful, wonderful historians out there, male, female alike. It doesn't matter. They are awesome. And when you hear those stories, they're just wonderful. But the thing about them is you can rely on them. There's a thing called plagiarism, and I've used some material here from classes at BSU, and I'm very happy to say that. Those people were wonderful, and if you want to know who I got this from, you can send me a deal, and I can try to get you a private message, but that would be the best at this point. I have everything written down if you need it. Like I said, history is a great deal. Great deal. Got a couple things here, a couple other things I want to shout out to you real quick. I want you to think about, there's a few, The 12 C's of Historical Thinking by Tim Lacy. Tim Lacy, Lacy. I'm just going to give you the 12 C's, and I want you to look them up and think about these things, okay? This is a history lesson. This is not learning a particular history yet. I want you to understand when we talk about history, what's involved, okay? To get to these points. I want you to understand that. Everybody just shouts out history. Well, yeah, history's awesome. It's got some really neat stuff. It's sad. It's funny. It's incredible, but, it's complicated. Complicated. That's the best word for it. It's exciting to me. So anyway, here's the 12 C's of historical thinking. Change over time. Context. Causality. Contingency. Bear with me here. We've got complexity. Competition. Chronology. Citations. This is the biggest one for me. And I didn't realize it at the time when I started taking my historical classes. One instructor really pushed this button for me, and it took me a little while to get it, but now I get it. Conjecture. You'll hear that also in the legal terms. So, then you have characters. Having trouble with my hands tonight, so hang in there. We also have continuity. And the last one is certainty, uncertainty. Now, I would appreciate if you guys would, pause it, write them down. Write down those 12 C's. Look them up. Take a little time. You're usually watching something on the tube or on the phone or on the tablet, whatever. Check it out, man. Check it out. Good stuff here. Mr. Tim Lacey. 12 C's of Historical Thinking. And then he put in a bonus at the end of it. Storytelling. I want to read this. Okay? Historians try to construct, i.e., imagine, and stylize narratives that attract readers even while they argue and seek to exemplify the points of historical thinking outlined here. Just think about it. Storytelling involves imagination, but not necessarily contextualizing. So we try to do it all in a story. And it not always works out to be the most flattering story, but we try very hard to do that. So anyways, give that a check. I think you'll enjoy it. I hope this helps you understand more about history, because you really got to understand how we got there. You know, what was going on? What caused these things to happen? You know, who were the people involved? What seismic shifts were happening, or what little minute things were happening? You know, just little tiny things can set off world events. And just think about it. Just little things. Everything cause and effect. Okay? Now, I really hope you enjoyed that. So, again, for me, this is very therapeutic for my stroke brain. It is a lot. It takes a lot out of me. And you can hear it in my voice generally. Ever since the stroke, it tends to go hoarse or it doesn't sound right. Some other interesting facts about my stroke. I do a really wonderful hiccup. And it's usually a big one. And I'll give you a quick example. It's like out of nowhere. It just happens. So I have a little trouble swallowing once in a while. It's quite exciting. But I am recovering. I'm doing really well. It will be a year in August. And I'm excited. Life is new again. My old life is gone. There's many things I cannot do again. And it's just not going to happen. And I'm trying to learn to accept that. So stroke is tough. Everybody is different with stroke. Some people recover, some people don't. Some partial, some, it just depends on the person. It's like a snowflake. None of them are the same. Everybody's stroke is different in how it affects them. So they have generalizations that run through, but for the most part, everyone's very, very different. There are similarities, but not a lot. So, but it's been exciting. I can say that. It's been exciting. Understanding my new brain, the depression, the anxiety. It's a little tough. But I think we need it. And this history lessons therapy, I'm really enjoying so far. We'll see how long I can keep going. I'm hoping to keep going for a long time with it. So, and if you're not liking it, that's okay. I'm not here for the likes or the clicks or whatever. Okay, this is therapy for me. But if you learn something from it, thank goodness for that. Then I've done something right. I can hold my head high. I hold my head high as much as I can. Like I said, there's a lot going on in this little brain. It's been damaged. And if, it may look good on the outside, but underneath, it's a storm, buddy. So just remember that when you hear people have had a stroke or a brain injury, and they look pretty good or sound pretty good, there's a lot more to it than that. Just try to be understanding. Okay, that's what we're looking for, is understanding more than anything. All right, guys. Next history lesson. Not sure when, but we'll get one soon. Thanks. We'll talk at you later. Bye.